Close your eyes. You're a member of a ruling elite with millions of people under your control, and you need them to wake up and work every single morning. Not when they feel like it, but every day for their entire lives. How do you ensure they keep going without a constant threat of rebellion? For most of history, the answer was physical slavery. From the pyramids of Egypt to the Roman Empire, the management model was intuitive. You work or you die. But as a business model, pure force is remarkably fragile. You have to feed, house, and guard people who have every incentive to do the bare minimum to avoid the whip. The moment a guard looks away, the labor stops or the slaves revolt. Rulers eventually discovered that true productivity cannot be forced through fear alone. It requires manufacturing a belief so strong that the worker begins to find meaning in their own extraction. To move past the inefficiencies of the whip, rulers turned to the motivator of survival. War created a unique management environment. When there is a shared enemy at the gates, productivity stops being a chore and becomes a necessity. A wartime economy is one of the most efficient in history because the workers believe their labor is the only thing keeping them alive. When the threat of war faded, religion provided a more permanent structure. It turned labor into a moral duty. But because they believed their work was literally a form of prayer. This evolved into the era of the nation-state. By giving people flags, uniforms, and a sense of civilizational superiority, empires convinced workers that their sacrifice was for the glory of the collective, providing a legal excuse to extract resources from the rest of the world. But external beliefs are prone to fracturing. Churches inevitably split. Empires constantly overextend, and enemies are eventually defeated. To find a motivator that would never fade, the elites had to move away from the tribe and toward the individual. The ultimate solution was money. It was the first universal symbol that could cross every border and religion. By replacing a sense of duty to God or country with a desire for personal gain, the system ensured that people would work themselves to exhaustion for the simple goal of making a number go up. This shift toward individual profit triggered the largest productivity boom in human history. The Industrial Revolution transformed humanity into a machine capable of mass-producing more goods in a morning than previous civilizations could manage in a century. In the 1600s, this system found its most powerful expression in the Dutch East India Company, or the VOC. Formed to monopolize the global spice trade, it became the wealthiest corporate entity ever to exist. To fund its fleet, the VOC invented the initial public offering. Citizens poured their savings into the company for high returns. To protect this, the government gave the VOC state-like powers to mint currency, build massive forts, and execute anyone in their way. To satisfy its shareholders, the VOC merged the efficiency of modern capitalism with the same violent force the system was supposed to replace. The company's focus narrowed to the Banda Islands. This was the only place on Earth where nutmeg grew, a spice so precious at the time that a single pound was worth more than a pound of gold. Governor General Jan Peterson Koen was the ruthless architect of the company's expansion. He saw diplomacy as a waste of resources, believing that absolute control was the only way to secure the 600% profit margins his investors demanded. In 1621, Koen led a massacre that nearly wiped out the Bandanese people. Those who weren't killed were enslaved, and the islands were converted into a plantation system where the cost of labor was effectively zero. This map shows how the VOC optimized their profits through the intra-Asian trade loop. They used silver to buy commodities in one market, sold them for a markup in another, and used those profits to fund the high-value spices they sent back to Europe. Despite these massive returns, the company rotted from corruption. Employees smuggled goods for profit, while directors borrowed heavily to pay out continuous dividends, hiding 5 simultaneous wars. The VOC eventually collapsed under its own weight, leaving behind a massive debt. It proved that a system built on overt brutality and absolute greed is unsustainable. It concentrates wealth so extremely that it eventually invites its own destruction. In the 19th century, Karl Marx observed these early industrial machines and predicted that the misery of the workers would eventually reach a breaking point, forcing them to unite and overthrow the system entirely. While a global revolution never materialized, workers in the 20th century did fight back. Through unions and strikes, they successfully demanded a larger share of the profits they helped generate. This pressure created the Great Post-War Compromise. Monks built the foundations of European infrastructure not because they were forced. Between the 1950s and 70s, it was actually possible for a single income to support a family, a home, a car, and a pension. For a brief window, hard work genuinely resulted in a high quality of life. However, by the late 70s, this model was faltering under rising inflation and economic stagnation. As the system reached a crisis point, the elite chose a path that didn't just fix the economy, but reclaims the power they had lost. A society centered on the worker was a society where the elite had to share control, and for those at the top, that was unacceptable. In the 1980s, governments began dismantling the post-war compromise. Unions were broken, regulations were removed, and public assets were sold off. The goal was to return to a system where capital, not labor, held all the leverage. This created a new problem. How do you convince millions of people to accept a lower standard of living without sparking a new wave of labor revolts? The solution was to change the definition of a good life. The social contract was rewritten from work hard to build a future to work hard to buy more things. Status was no longer measured by your role in the community, but by what you could afford to consume. Consumerism shifted the focus from collective power to individual competition. It's impossible to organize a revolution when everyone is fighting their peers for the next upgrade or drowning in debt to maintain their social standing. The system successfully replaced solidarity with desire. This is the most effective management system in history. A traditional slave knows they are in chains and dreams of breaking them, but a consumer believes they are free because they chose the products that define them. No one rebels against a system they find pleasurable, even as it consumes their health, their time, and their lives.